Hi guys, there were a couple of questions about from section 1.3 problems 41 through 46. I know there was no video show you something exactly like that, but so let me just kind of work a couple of them for you real quick. So the first thing we need to know, again, this is from section 1.3. And we're going to start with problem number 41. Okay, now let me write the problem, then I'm just going to make a couple of quick comments that you need to know those. If you read the section very carefully, there were a couple of rules in there that we need to know before we can do this problem. Okay, but let me write the problem first. So we have negative 6 minus square root of negative 24 all over 2. Okay, and the question says to write each of the numbers in a standard form. So we have a quotient here. We want to write in a standard form. So first of all, a standard form, as you hopefully notice in a section, is A plus BI. Okay, so this is what we call a standard form, A plus BI. So anytime they ask for a standard form, they want to see that. So the reason for the I is because whenever you have a negative under the square root, that's when the I comes in. So again, if you look at the section, you notice that definition of a square root of negative 1 is the same thing as I. So first step is there is a rule also that says how to remove a negative from a square root. And that rule is going to basically allows us to move the negative. Okay, so again, the first step is to remove the negative, and the rule says you can remove the negative, but then you have to bring in the I. Okay, so the I will kind of replace the negative. So the next question now is, can the square root of 24 be reduced further? Remember, 24 does have a factor in it that is a perfect square. 24 is 4 times 6. So the 4, which is a perfect square, will come out to be 2. And the other factor, 6, will remain under the square root. Let me just pause here for a minute. So this will be your next step. So again, from here to here, we just realized the square root of 24 is the same thing as the square root of 4 times 6, because 4 times 6 is 24. Of course, 4 is a perfect square, so it comes out of square root to be 2, and then the 6 remains under. The only thing remains to do, of course, is to put in a standard form. So right now, we don't have a standard form because we have a fraction involved. So we want to split the fraction into 2 pieces. So the next step is just to put it in a standard form, okay? So we're going to rewrite that as negative 6 over 2, and then minus 2 square root of 6 over 2 times I. Let me just again pause for a second. So there's your next step. So the reason why we split this fraction to 2 pieces so we can have the standard form A plus BI. Sometimes it's okay to have a minus even though standard form has a plus, but usually they accept a minus between the two as long as you have 2 separate fractions, not one fraction together. The last step is to reduce, if possible, the fractions, of course, and they can be reduced. I'm going to go ahead and move it upstairs. So now from here, negative 6 over 2, of course, reduces to negative 3. And then the 2's cancel each other, which leaves you with negative square root of 6. And of course, you still have the I, okay? So there is your final answer here. So there is your number written in standard form. Again, even though standard form has a plus, but most of the time they'll accept minus. Of course, you could also write this as plus and then minus the square root of 6 times I, but usually that's not necessary. Most of the time they do leave the answer with a minus instead of plus, okay? So that's the idea. So 2 things, let me just kind of repeat a couple of things that I used. So we may need it for also next problem, okay? But there is your answer for problem number 41. So just a quick, again, overview of a couple of things we use. Always remember a standard form for any complex number is A plus BI, where of course A and B are real numbers and I is the imaginary unit, okay? Also, we call A the real part and we call B the imaginary part of the complex number. Now, one of the rules we just used a minute ago that says anytime you have a square root of negative of a number, which of course we can never leave a negative under the square root, you can actually remove the negative and then you have to bring in the I, okay? So this is how you can always remove a negative from under the square root, okay? So just a quick example. I mean, something that I did a minute ago. Remember, we had a square root of negative 24. So the first thing we did, we wrote that as a square root of 24 times I. Based on that rule, as you can see, the negative is gone. Now 24 again. I'm sure if you go back and look at your basic reduction of radicals, you remember that anytime you have a product under the radical, which one is a perfect square, you can always bring that perfect square out. And of course, the square root of 4 becomes 2. So that comes as square root. And the other factor that is not a perfect square remains on the radical. That's how we got to a square root of 6 in place of a square root of negative 24. Okay, so hopefully these basic ideas, we use them in a problem that we just did a minute ago. So hopefully this will help you to see how we got our final answer. I'm going to go ahead and stop this video here, and then I'll make another one for another example. So hopefully now that you have seen some of these basic rules, we'll hopefully understand the next problem better, okay? All right, thank you.